Today, you are going to get a front row seat to the ultimate Springbok Dream Team backline, as selected by Rugby World Cup champion, two-time Tri-Nations winner, British and Irish Lions series victor, Springbok captain and legend, John de Villiers. John, welcome to Front Row Rugby.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. It's nice to be on here, and looking forward to the conversation.
So just before we kick off, this is all part of the SuperSport Bok Dream Team initiative. You can help select the ultimate Springbok team over the last 3 decades. The Bok Dream Team is in celebration of 30 years of Springbok excellence since winning the 1995 Rugby World Cup. You'll find a link in the description area below, as well as a QR code on your screen. From there, you'll be able to select your best box. There are great prizes up for grabs, courtesy of SuperSport. Your World of Champions is also celebrating 30 years this year, bringing you some of the most cherished rugby moments along the way. Vote now and remember to tune in for all the rugby action. Okay, John, so we're going to pick our best backline here. I know everybody wants to see your team, but there's going to be 2 or 3 people watching that want me to pick a team too. So we'll compare and see how it goes. Obviously, the logical place to start is at Scrumhalf. In the number 9 jersey, over the last 30 years, I think of men like Fourie du Preez, I think of Joost van der Westhuizen, Ruan Pienaar. I think those would be the main contenders. I'd like to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, look, you've already touched on 3 fantastic players. You obviously add a name like Ricky January, which I think did fantastic things for the Boks. You think that game back in 2008, the try scored in Dunedin, and I was fortunate to be part of that game. And then a guy called Faf de Klerk, who won 2 World Cups starting at 9, would probably have 1 or 2 things to say about it. But in terms of all those names that we've already mentioned, I actually played with all of them, bar with Faf. Obviously, I think we might have played against each other. Fantastic names there. Fortunate to have played with all of them. But I think, if you think of the role of a fly-off, if you think of the decision-making that happens in that position and how many times it happens in a game, the Fourie du Preez was just, so much better than anyone else in terms of that. He had the ability to make the right decisions at the right time, in the right moment. And then he was deceivingly quick as well. He had such a crisp pass and a fantastic kicking game. So, I'd go with Fourie, but I mean, amazing names there. Ruan Pienaar was just so versatile and a fantastic rugby player. Ricky and his abrasiveness, Joost van der Westhuizen's ability to score tries, and just the natural rugby player, amazing. And then, like I said, Faf, 2 World Cups under his belt. So amazing names, but I'll go with Fourie.
Yeah, John, I'm going to agree with you. I'm also going to go with Fourie du Preez. I just feel that in spite of all those other guys, and yes, as you say, they were all wonderful in their own way, but I feel like Fourie du Preez was just almost a perfect player in many aspects. And just one thing, you mentioned Ricky January there and that try in Dunedin. That was actually on my birthday in 2008. So thank you to you and Ricky, because that was probably the best birthday present ever.
Yeah, no, he told me afterwards. He said he did it specifically for you, for your birthday. So, yeah, congratulations.
That's great. Okay, so John, clearly, the way we've discussed this, there could be 5, 6, 7 of us around at a braai right now, and maybe you would pick Fourie, I pick Joost, someone else picks Ruan, someone else picks Ricky, etc., etc. And no one is really wrong or right? Because it's obviously just our opinion. So if we move on to Flyhalf, because I think this one is really, really difficult, because you're going to talk about Handré Pollard, but if I go back to the 90s, obviously Joel Stransky, when we think of the 1995 Rugby World Cup, I think of a guy like Henry Honeyball in the late 90s. You can talk about Butch James, Andre Pretorius, Mornay Steyn. You think of what he did against the British and Irish Lions, not once, but twice. Where do you sit on the number 10 jersey?
Yeah, and again, I actually don't necessarily enjoy these kind of comparisons and picking all-time greats, because, for me, it's so difficult to compare generations. And in a 30-year time span, you've got generations of players, and things change so quickly. So, what we had and what you had available as resources back in 95, is very different to what they have now. So that's why it's difficult for me to do this. But I mean, in terms of this exercise, we have to do it. So um, look again, great names in terms of what Joel did at that '95 World Cup. In terms of um, Henry Honeyball's ability to be, I think he was kind of the first fly off with again that kind of abrasive ability where a loose forward knew that they weren't just running down that channel and getting easy meters. It was going to be tough to go there. And then Butch followed suit there, and he probably just upped it, tenfold. Morne Steyn and what he's done throughout the years in '09. And then again in 2021 against the Lions. So many fantastic names that we can mention there. But the one that I will probably go with, and I think he has really showed his ability in the big moments to come to the fore and not be rattled at all. He came onto the scene as this exciting young fly-off, but then matured into an all-round player that can win you games, and that's Andre Pollard. Again, double World Cup winner, and I think he's a fantastic rugby player. He's got such a tough edge to his game, and and I'll probably go with him. After this weekend's performance from the box, some other names might enter the fray as well, but for now we go with Andre Pollard.
I'm going to agree with you again on that one, John. So far, you and I are 2 from 2. And as you say, maybe in 10 years' time, we'll be sitting here and we'll say, it's Sasha Feinberg and Gomez Zulu, and it's not even a debate anymore. But we'll see what happens in time. And as you say, you know what? If we're in a Rugby World Cup final and we need a 3-pointer to go over to win the trophy, Andre Pollard is going to put that one away. And I agree with you. I think, even though I will just say this, and I know you can relate to this. When you're growing up, you've obviously got there's this awe and aura around your favorite players and your heroes. And for me, Henry Honeyball was actually one of those guys. So I'm very tempted to go with Henry, but I'll go with Pollard in this case. So that brings us then to my favorite part of this episode, actually, the number 12 jersey, because I want to see if you are going to select yourself in this side. There's some serious competition, of course. If we go back to the Rugby World Cup 1995, you'd think of Henny Leroux, Peter Miller, a ferocious tackler. There were some other great names currently, like Damien Dialende would be there. Some might even say Damien Villiers is making a case for himself in the number 12 jersey, but we'll see what happens on that front. I think of Devette Barry, because he was kind of the guy in the 12 jersey just before you took over. I'd like to hear what you have to say about the inside centre position.
Yeah, well, I definitely won't select myself, Peter. That I can guarantee you. But yeah, again, fantastic names, and you mentioned Peter Miller. I remember that game in '92, first game back into international rugby with the Boks played the All Blacks in Joburg, and Peter Miller scoring 2 tries, Donny Gerber scoring a try. So again, what he did back then, those were the guys that I also looked up to. Brendan Fenter played a little bit at 12. Then you had Henny Leroux, I would say more of a converted 12 from 10. And then the new generation guys like a Devette Barry, Damien Dialende, obviously. Henry Honeyball every now and then playing in the 12 jersey as well. Flecky that played there. So yeah, so many names that you can throw in there. But again, I think a guy like Damien started off slowly in terms of his international international career, but he's just grown ever since, and and he's been that kind of rock in the Bok backline, for the last number of years. So in terms of what he's achieved and the amount of time that he's been in that position, I'll go with Damien Dialende. And you're right, someone like a Damien Willemse will also start putting up his hand and be part of the conversation, and so too Andre Esterhuizen. But I certainly think for now, Damien Dialende would be my answer.
Okay, so you're going to go Damien Dialende. This is the first part of the episode where we're going to have a difference. So I'm actually selecting you, and it's not just because I've got you on as a guest and I kind of have to suck up to you. I genuinely think that you are the best inside centre that we've had. I think that it's fair to say that what your coaches asked you to do is not the same thing that coaches are asking Damien Dialende to do. And also, I think we can apply that to Henny Leroux and Peter Miller. I feel like in many ways, 12 is actually a position that has changed a lot in the last 3 decades. But I just think when I factor in all the different aspects, I'm going to go with John de Villiers as my 12.
Thank you, Peter. I appreciate that. we can agree to disagree on that one then.
Indeed we can. Okay, so now we need to pick a partner for either Damien Dialende or yourself. Jeepers, there are some outstanding players that have worn the outside centre jersey for us. You mentioned Dani Gerber earlier, so he's obviously not eligible for this team because the SuperSport Bok Dream Team is only from 1995 onwards. So in a way, that kind of makes it a little bit easier because I think Dani Gerber it'd be very difficult to leave him out. And interestingly enough, John, he was actually my first favourite rugby player. I wonder if you were a big fan as well, because obviously you didn't play outside centre most of the time anyway, but obviously he was in the midfield. But we think of other men like Jacques Fourie, your partner in crime. Lukhanyo Am is a guy who I think very highly of. As you said, Robbie Fleck played there from time to time. And so many other wonderful names. Andre Snyman is a guy who also comes to mind. I'd like to hear your take on the 13 jersey.
Yeah, well, again, it would have made it much easier if you had Dani Gerber part of the conversation, because that would definitely have been my pick. He's also my pick as the best player ever to play for South Africa, so I am a massive fan, and certainly growing up, he was kind of the idol. You mentioned all those names, and again, it shows us how fortunate we are in terms of the players that we've produced in that position. A Canan Moodie that plays there now, fantastic rugby player, and he'll be part of the conversation in years to come. But Andre Snyman, 97, 98, he was immense during that time. Japie Mulder in 95 and the role that he fulfilled. And currently, Lukhanyo Am was so well settled in the 13 jersey and got injured. Jesse got his opportunity, and then Jesse hasn't looked back since. So many guys that you can go for. Someone like a Marius Joubert that scored 3 tries against the All Blacks. I think there's only one of him and Ray Moore that's done it. In the history of the game. So many fantastic names. But I had the great privilege to play with Jacques Fourie for quite a few Test matches, and we became good friends. And I think he is still one of the most underrated players that ever played for South Africa. I think the value of Jacques Fourie, you could always see when he wasn't there rather than when he was there. The try scored against the Lions in the second Test match, phenomenal. Not many people that would have scored that try, and numerous others that he scored as well. So he would be my pick. Amongst fantastic players, Jacques Fourie would be the name that I'd go with.
Sounds good. I must be honest with you, I am very, very tempted to go with Lukhanyo Am. I just think that because of the injury, and it has sort of set him back, which is such a shame, because I think that before the injury, I think that in many cases, there were a lot of things that he was doing on a rugby field that we'd never seen before. But I think that when you factor in longevity, and obviously Jacques Fourie was quite fortunate in that he didn't spend long portions of time on the sidelines, and he did have a long career, including winning the Rugby World Cup. Obviously, also won the Rugby World Cup. So I just think that gives Jacques Fourie the edge. So as much as I really, really am tempted to go with Lukhanyo Am, I'm going to agree with you as well, and we'll go with Jacques Fourie. So that brings us then to the wings, John. And I know you played a bit of wing for the Springboks in the beginning of your career. So I wonder if you might pick yourself now on the wing, given that you didn't do so.
Even less so, I definitely won't select myself for even though I enjoyed my time there, but I always preferred the midfield.
I have no doubt. All right, so let's go then. I think that the left wing, it feels to me like it's an obvious choice, but let's mention some of the names of the men that would be contenders. Brian Abana, the top try scorer in the history of Springbok rugby. Peter Rousseau is a guy who comes to mind. He obviously did very well. You think of Makazole Mapimpi, the first man to score a try for the Springboks in a Rugby World Cup final. And there are a couple of other guys as well over the years that might put their hands up. Think of Chester Williams. He was probably the first superstar in terms of the Springboks and the wing position in this era that we are now discussing, 95 to 2025. Who's your pick for 11?
Yeah, I'll throw another name in there, in Curtly Arendse. I think what he's done and his try-scoring ability has been immense. But again, those names, Mapimpi, Peter Hendricks, Peter Rousseau, Chester Williams. You've got phenomenal rugby players. And again, you go through those eras, and there were probably times in those eras where they were the best in the world in that position. But in terms of this conversation, if you have a guy that scored 67 tries in Test match rugby, second most in the history of the game by any player, and only to be it's only a Japanese player that played most of his Test match rugby kind of against, you want to call it tier 2 Test match nations. Brian Abana is, without a shadow of a doubt, the guy that you will go with. Equal John Alomu's record of 15 tries in a World Cup. And the record just goes on and on and on, when you speak about Brian. So, yeah, definitely a banner in the 11 shirt.
Yeah, I'm with you. It has to be Brian Abana. And then the 14 jersey on the other side of the park, this could be an interesting one, because you think of Brian Abana's partner in crime. They were together for about a decade, JP Peterson. But maybe people might say, well, you know what, in the last few years, Cheslin Kolbe might have something to say about that combination. I go back to the 90s and I think of Stefan de Blanche. And then one of my favorite players growing up was James Small, and he was a formidable player in the right wing position. What's your take?
Yeah, you think of guys, and there's two guys that kind of pops up: James Small and JP Peterson. Now, again, I never played with James Small, but the way that he played the game, he was going to put every little bit and ounce of his body on the line every single time he put the jersey on, and I absolutely loved that about him. And JP was the same. JP had the ability to not only score fantastic tries and do amazing things, but he had the ability to really hurt his opposing winger. And I remember in 2008, we played England at Twickenham, and I think it was 42-6. We won that game. And he just, I think it was Paul Sacchi that played opposite him. And he got stretched off like within 20 minutes of the game because JP just manhandled him. So JP was a phenomenal player as well. So those two guys certainly are names that would be part of the conversation. There are actually two guys, and they could play both sides, but just names to mention: Jongi Nokwe and Tonrai Shavanga. And the reason I mention those two names because Tonrai's 6 tries against Uruguay, and Jongi's 4 tries against Australia. Those are two games that really stick out, and the pace that those two had was immense. They didn't play that many Test matches, but I think mentionable names. But it's, again, for me, it's an easy one in that it's Cheslin Kolbe for me. What Chesy has done, if we forget about the brain fart against Argentina in the first Test match and the drop kick, which he probably will never forget. The things that Chesy has done in the Bok jersey, he fights way above his weight. Phenomenal player. His ability to finish is probably second to none. And his defensive ability, same thing. Even though he's way smaller than most, he never gives an inch. So Cheslin Kolbe will be my number 14.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one as well. I'm also going with Cheslin Kolbe. As I say, very tempted to go with JP Peterson, and then obviously, James Small was a boyhood hero of mine for a very, very long time. But yeah, I'm going to go with Cheslin Kolbe as well. I think also just that try that he scored in the 2019 final against England will live long in the memory.
Here comes Cheslin Kolbe. Colby. Colby bounces towards the fence. Beats one. Still going. Chesley Colby. Chesley Colby. South Africa. The World Cup is theirs.
And that brings us to the number 15 jersey. So far, John, you and I are actually kind of thinking along the same lines here. Of the 6 players so far, we've got 5 alike. Let's see if that trend continues, moving to fullback. Percy Montgomery, the highest point scorer, the record holder for Springbok Rugby. But then there have been so many other greats as well. Think of Frans Steyn, think of Andre Joubert. Villiers is a guy who will come into the conversation. I think we mentioned it a little bit earlier, Damian Willemse, maybe we talk about him at 12 and 15, but that might come a little bit in the future. But let's hear how you see the fullback position.
You've thrown the cat among the pigeons here with some of the names that you mentioned there. So again, immediately you think someone like a Villiers, 100 test matches, the longevity. Again, I was fortunate to have been on the field when he made his debut back in 2013, and to have seen him make his 100, so proud of him. I was on the field when Monty played his 100th test match. So again, two Centurions in the fullback position. You throw in someone like a Damian Willemse currently, who's just a phenomenal player. But I think what's counted against him is the fact that he hasn't established himself yet in a position. He will be part of the conversation going forward in one of those positions, whether it's 12 or whether it's 15. But I think that kind of throws him off a little bit. And ditto probably for someone like a Frans Steyn. He could never really establish himself in a specific fantastic rugby player. But is he a 10? Is he a 12? Is he a 15? So that kind of makes it a little bit difficult. If you get called the Rolls Royce, then there's something special about you. And I think, it's so easy to go with the players of a later generation, but Andre Joubert is the one player that, that just sticks out where that left boot, his ability to break the line on the outside run, his passing game, his ability throughout, my selection will be Andre Joubert, even though, again, amazing names in that group.
All right, so we're going to have another difference of opinion here, John. As much as, like you say, he's the Rolls Royce, right? And there's a reason that he's called that. But I'm going to go with Percy Montgomery for my team. I just think, again, that ability to be the all-time record point scorer for the Springboks. And I love his story as well, in that he burst onto the scene. He was successful, or relatively successful, in the 90s. Then he sort of went away. Jake White brought him back. And he kind of went from an unreliable goal kicker to a guy who almost never missed a kick ever. And I think that's going to give Percy the edge for me, as well as obviously his running ability and his pace and his defensive skills as well. So we've got 5 out of 7 the same, and then we have those 2 differences. But John, I've got, this is not part of the SuperSport Bok Dream Team, but something we could do to maybe squeeze some of our preferred players still into the squad is we could pick a bomb squad. What do you say?
Okay, well, are we going 7-1 split, 6-2 split, or 5-3 split?
Well, I'll tell you what, I actually had Victor on the show a couple of weeks ago where we picked up a pack, okay, and we decided to go 6-2. But I'm going to go with creative license here because today we're picking a backline, so I reckon we go 5-3, and that way we can squeeze more backline players in.
I'm happy with that.
All right, so I'm going to put the ball in your court then. Who are your 3 backline players that'll come on in the second half and make a difference?
Well, again, if we were playing the game in 1995, it would be very different to playing the game now. And I think I'll base my decisions on the way that substitutes are being used currently. So as my reserve 9, not that they are reserves anymore, but impact players, I want to mention a name that wasn't even mentioned earlier, in that I will go with Grant Williams. Because of his impact, off the bench, his pace, his ability to take gaps and score tries, and his versatility. Purely for this exercise, and kind of the reasons that I've given prior to this in the way that they get utilized currently. yeah, I'll go Grant Williams.
Okay, so that's going to be your Scrumhalf on the bench. Obviously, I mean, I know it's not mandatory from World Rugby in the same way that you have to have a fresh front row on the bench, but it's a bit stupid not to pick a 9 in your reserves. So you've gone Grant Williams. I mean, what a great player he is. And I actually think that right now he is our best Scrumhalf. I know people are debating it, but I think he's our best 9 right now. But I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Given that I selected Fourie du Preez in my starting team, I'm going to pick Joost van der Westhuizen as part of my bomb squad. So he'll be my 9. And then I suppose you could say that Joost also covered wing, even though it was quite rare.
No, that's not a bad selection at all. I think I can remember Joost playing on the wing against England in 1994, I think it was, at Newlands, where he started the game as 9 and then moved to the wing for the most part of that game. So he had the pace. He had that's I think the impact that Joost could have made off the bench in today's game probably would have been immense. Just with his ability with ball in hand. So yeah, good selection.
All right. So we need 2 more backline players. I'm going to leave it up to you.
Well, it's a difficult one, yeah, because you kind of want to. I'm going to Damian Willemse. Damian Willemse as one backline player, and then for the other one, I will go. Because Damian basically covers 10 to 15. I'm trying to think who else I'll go with. So many options. Trying to think more of an outside back, maybe. Who are you liking?
You're throwing it back at me. Okay, so I'll tell you what I'm going to do, right? Especially in this sort of 6-2 era, right? Typically, you'd have a scrum half, and then you'd have a guy that can pretty much cover anything from 10 to 15, right? So Joost van der Westhuizen's the scrum half. I was thinking Frans Steyn would be my guy that covers pretty much everything from 10 to 15. And I think, one man's Frans Steyn is another man's Damian Willemse, right? In many aspects. And that means that for the third player, I'm in a bit of a luxurious position in that you can kind of pick anyone you like, right? And what I'm going to do is go with Lukhanyo Am.
Okay. Yeah, that's not a bad selection. I was maybe even thinking of Villiers Leroux. So I kind of want that, someone that can really open it up and be creative, score tries. Yeah, any one of those two. Yeah, I'd probably go Damian and Villy.
Sounds good. I think what this has also shown us, John, is you can just imagine Rassie and his coaching staff trying to pick 3 backline players every week, and maybe this is kind of the thought processes that they go through.
Yeah. No, it's certainly not easy, and especially this kind of selection where your grouping of players is just so big. And the quality is just phenomenal, So so many guys that you can put in those positions, and especially when you start looking at the bench, it depends on who the opposition is, where are you playing, all those kind of things. So it's a pretty cool exercise to do.
No, for sure. And I think the other thing that also comes into it is, like in your case, maybe you might have been regularly thinking about picking guys who you played with, guys that you were or against, that you were very familiar with. But then there's also the aspect of guys that you admired growing up. And, like we said earlier, Dani Gerber is a guy that we would love to have put in.
Yeah, look, Peter, I mean, I think I might even go Grant Williams, Marnie Libbok, and Damian Willemse on the bench and bring those guys on for the last 20. And their ability to open up the game is probably some of the best in the world. So we can go on for days and days about this, I suppose.
Absolutely. And as I said a little bit earlier, there could be 6 of us around a fire and everyone would have a different selection, and none of it is really right or wrong in that case. John de Villiers, let me say, it was lovely having you on Front Row Rugby today, an absolute pleasure, and I really hope we can have you on again in the future.
Yeah, thank you very much, Peter. It was very exciting to go through this exercise, and let's see what the people out there what they decide.
So what's your opinion? Do you like the team that I've selected? Do you agree with the selection made by John de Villiers? Or do you think we've left out several high performance players? No doubt we could have 10 people around the braai and everyone would come up with a different player in certain positions. Let me know in the comment section down below. And while you're down there, why not support me with a super thanks? That's the heart button with the $sign inside of it. You'll be able to make a highlighted comment. I promise to reply to it. I'll also hit the love button on your comment, and you'll be invited to make a small donation to my channel. It's whatever you want it to be. The reason that I'm looking for these donations, guys, is because I would love to do this full time, and I would also love to go to Australia in 2027 and cover the Rugby World Cup for you with daily coverage from down under. But in order to make that happen, I'll need your support. Whatever you're willing to contribute, I'll be very, very grateful. Could be 10 Rand, could be 10,000 Rand. And if you used to work at Eskom and they gave you a lekker bonus when you left, whether it was by force or voluntarily, I'll be very, very grateful if you do the right thing. If you're not yet ready to support me in that manner, you can also just spear tackle the like button, and you can also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so. And now you've seen John de Villiers' backline, why not go and check out Victor Matfield's forward pack? That's right, I did an interview with the great man where we picked his favourite pack of forwards for the last 30 years as part of the SuperSport Dream Team promotion. That video is on your screen over here. And in addition to that, if you've already seen it, why not go and have a look at this video I put together counting down the top 10 Springbok Rugby World Cup moments. I know you'll enjoy them, and I'll see you next time.